I'm sure you've all been aware of the anarchy in the US yesterday. Trump supporters storming Capitol Hill in anger over Trump's defeat. This is now being called, a historic event, and it absolutely is. This will remain with the US for years to come and also the whole world. Trump's Save America rally saw more than 2,000 people storm the Capitol Hill building where the electoral votes were being counted. Protesters used any means of force to break in, causing police to draw their weapons and arrest at least 53 people. Joining us now to talk about what took place in the US yesterday is our US correspondent, Professor Ed Blakely. Professor Ed, welcome to The Daily.
I'm glad to be on.
Extraordinary scenes yesterday. It would seem anarchy had taken over in Washington, D.C. How does the United States go about recovering from this? I mean, the rifts and the culture clashes in the US seem to run incredibly deep.
I can give you two scenarios here. One is, since this was sharp, violent, and quick, it woke up the American people. Everything else has been dribble, dribble, dribble. A slow sock. Bad, but no accountability. The American people saw Trump in action now. So this may mean that Trump has actually gone off the stage. There are many Americans who supported Trump, but few supported Trumpism. And this terror was Trumpism. So I think there's going to be a back off of those 85% of Republicans down to maybe 30% of Republicans who would ever support anything associated with Trump. That's scenario number one. That means Trump committed political suicide.
Right.
Scenario number two is he will be in the background for a very long time to come and may even try to run for president next time. And in that scenario, there will be chaos again, this time among the Republicans.
Right. Do you think that will be on the Republican platform if he tries to run again?
Yes.
Right.
I would say, judging from yesterday, when 93 or 94, it would have been 94, except one person was absent, voted against blocking the certification, that of those 94, 55 or 60 would vote to remove Trump. So he is done as far as the constitutional American governance system is concerned.
What do you think the ramifications will be more broadly for the GOP? Many are saying, this is the end of the Republican Party or the end for the Republicans. I think that's quite naive, really, to suggest such a thing, because many within the party always divested away from President Trump's rhetoric, and he's not. He's not really a proper Republican. If you look at it, far right extremism is actually fairly different to conservative, governments. What do you think the future will be for that party?
Well, I think this is not the party. This is Trump, and the people who are followers of Trump may continue to follow him. But I think the party is going to take a very different course. The party is basically the suburb party. And the suburbs have to be recaptured because they have the money, they have the skills, they have the potential candidates. So if Trump runs candidates, he can't run them in the suburbs. They will be losers. But the Democrats can run candidates. And if there's a division, that means the Democrat wins. I remember when Richard Nixon had to resign. And they said this wrote off the Republican Party. It did for a while, but smarter, cooler heads prevailed. And I think that'll happen this time.
Well,
the big difference this time is
you served in Richard Nixon's administration.
I did. I served with the president. I served right up to Watergate.
Right.
By luck, something in my gut told me there's something wrong here. I resigned. As many people are doing now, just before the stuff hit the fan. But I was there through it all and saw the United States act as it should, where the Senate acted as it should. Republican senators held a Republican president accountable. I think what Lindsey Graham said yesterday and what Romney said yesterday tells me that the Republican Party will gel around those people who are going to hold the party accountable for what it does within the Constitution. In another respect, this was a test of a very weak thing, democracy.
At play. Speaker Nancy Pelosi, who I know you know quite well, is threatening to pursue impeachment if the Trump cabinet don't invoke the 25th Amendment to remove Trump from office immediately. Do you foresee this actually happening?
No, but I think she had to make that threat. If she didn't, her first impeachment would have seemed hollow and ridiculous against this carnage. So she had to make that threat, or she'd lose all of her presence within the Democratic Party. So it's a threat. You can't do this in 7 days. And even if you could, what for? That would really divide the nation.
And also deliver a very short-termed President Mike Pence. What do you think the ramifications will be for Trump then, if not impeachment?
Well, I think there's another course of action here, and that is censorship. Presidents have been censored in the past, but it's been, a light tap on the shoulder. I think a real censorship passed by both houses that deprived him of being a president's ex-president. And this could be done because this is only an act that provides the president a pension, the possibility of having a library, Secret Service protection, and all the benefits associated with the president, including travel, et cetera. President didn't receive that before Harry Truman. And it's only an act that's approved every year.
Right.
So it'd be very easy with the Democrats' control of both houses and many Republicans, I'd say 10 or 12 Republicans voting for this, to deprive him of presidential benefits with an act of censure saying he would never be called upon to attend formal events. He would not be able to get briefings and things like this that presidents receive. And basically, he would be an outcast. And I think that's possible, doable. It does give him something for the future, though. He can say, look, they tried to bang me up while I was in office, and now they're taking office away from me. But that will fall on very hollow ground.
The New York Times has reported in the last number of hours that President Trump has in recent weeks been discussing with close aides that he wants to pardon himself in the final days of his presidency. Has that ever been done before, a president pardoning himself?
No, it's never been done before. If you read the Constitution, it's a very short paragraph. It says, the president may grant pardons and clemency to people who committed crimes against the United States. This was used by Lincoln to pardon all the Confederate soldiers and all the generals. And it's been used by many others to right things. It has never been used for self. In the arguments of the great legal scholars is that if the intention was for the president to give things to himself, the founders of the Constitution wrote and read and understood English better than anybody now. They would have said so. It says to grant. To grant means to give. It does not mean to bestow. So most legal scholars say if he does it, it won't mean anything. Moreover, if he does it to cover up a crime, even if he could grant it, he cannot grant it in those circumstances. And the possibility is he could be charged for insurrection here, and to cover that crime up by a pardon would be ridiculous, because it would mean any president could lead the people against the government.
Look, I want to turn to some more positive stuff and more positive developments, I guess, that have happened over in the States with the Georgia Senate runoffs. So obviously Jon Ossoff beat David Perdue, and then even more astoundingly, Reverend Raphael Warnock also took the other Senate seat that was up for grabs, making him the first black senator that Georgia has ever had. What does this mean to you?
And the first Jew.
The first Jew is... Well, there you go.
So, boy, that's really going some distance in the South.
I mean, especially Georgia. I mean, you and I were together on election day, and when we were looking at the results come in, I mean, I don't think anybody really expected Georgia to go the way that it did. They haven't gone blue since Bill Clinton won in 92, and before that it was Jimmy Carter in 77. So it's been a long time. Pardon?
They were Southerners.
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah, I mean, that does help. You're right. That does help. But, so really extraordinary. You can really see the demographics in Georgia changing. What do you think that's down to?
Well, I think there are three things here. One is Georgia's done a relatively good job of importing talent. Georgia has one of the best economic development programs in the nation. And I still sit as an advisor on the Atlanta Economic Development Forum that attracts business and builds a kind of intellectual infrastructure that makes intelligent people think, I could live here and stay here. They have the weather, they have a great airport, they have almost everything. So they didn't know when they started importing these people, they were importing their own revolution. And the people who've come from New York and even California, some of my own relatives, I've been to Georgia Tech a couple times and lectured there. And I find it, in that little bubble I was in, just like being in California. That bubble's just gotten bigger. It's gotten bigger for two reasons. One, Georgia is a very excellent place to do business. The tax laws there and those kinds of things are good. And Georgia is actually taking civil rights fairly seriously. So they're members of the state legislature and so on. And Stacey Abrams, remember, was the Speaker of the House.
Extraordinary, yeah. The work that she's done, I think, there's a lot of the responsibility actually lies with her.
She made the difference.
Yeah.
She really took advantage of what she saw. And that was, if you move the barriers to voting and we all vote, we can make a big difference. The other factor here, and we saw this, these are people voting against Trump a second time. We saw it the first time in the election. The people in Georgia weren't voting for the Democrats. They might have been voting because Biden's a nice guy, but they're definitely voting against Trump. So I think Georgia's reached an interesting point where the Democratic Party, led by the Ossoffs and Warnocks and Stacey Abrams, can take the state. That being said, similar things happen in Arizona. It's already happened in Colorado, New Mexico, Texas.
Texas is getting very close, isn't it? I mean, if you look at the results there. Yeah.
And I think with the new Voting Rights Act, the Lewis Act, which will be coming up shortly, the kind of stunts they pulled in Texas, like having one voting booth per county, are done. If they want to have a commission on voting, we're going to have more black voters than we had before. I can see motor voter like California coming. Yeah. You can't have a driver's license without being registered to vote. You'd have to say, I don't want to register in California.
Well, it sounds like very exciting times in the States because, I mean, after all these years of voter suppression, which is just has been a problem for many, many years, it looks like it's on the way out. Look, just lastly, it's just broken in the last few moments. Donald Trump has released a video on Twitter, so they've obviously taken his account off suspension, saying that tempers must be cooled and calm restored. He said he would work towards a smooth, orderly transition of power and thanked his supporters. But he also added, our incredible journey is only just beginning. Any final thoughts on that, Ed?
Like I said in the beginning, this could be his last chapter. The question is, how much more damage can he do? And I think the pardon power is a place where he can do it. So let's look to a change in government, a change in tone, and a lot of anti-Trumpism as the next wave of political culture.
Ed Blakely, thanks so much for joining us on The Daily this morning, and Happy New Year.
Thank you.
That was Professor Ed Blakely speaking to us about the chaos that took place in the US yesterday.